Abandoned by family at the age 16 because they believed I could handle it. They left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "You'll figure it out." That was it. No explanation, no goodbye, no number to call. I came home from a late shift at the grocery store to an echoing house and that one line in my mother's handwriting. At first, I thought it was some sick joke. I opened every cupboard, every closet, checked the garage. But all that was left was my mattress, a few of my clothes, and a half-empty jar of peanut butter in the pantry. I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. I assumed I had done something wrong because that's how it had always worked in our house. If things were tense, it was my fault. If we were broke, it was my fault. If someone was upset, I'd caused it. Looking back, they hadn't really pretended to love me for a long time. When I was 13, I stayed up all night baking a birthday cake for my mom from a recipe I found online. I messed up the frosting, but I was proud of it. She walked in, glanced at it, and said, "Well, it's a little clumpy." Then she scraped off the frosting and threw half of it away. When I was 15, I spent weeks tutoring my younger brother, Noah, for his finals. He'd complain I was being bossy every time I tried to explain something. Slammed his door in my face more times than I can count. Then he'd still show up the next day asking for help, and I'd still say yes. At 16, I handed my entire paycheck from my part-time job to my dad because he said the electricity might get cut off. Later, when I mentioned it during an argument, he shouted, "You're useless, Ava. You act like you're doing us a favor just by existing." That line stuck with me. I was always useful. Never loved. A week after I found the empty house, the landlord showed up. He looked uncomfortable when I opened the door. "Your parents turned in the keys and ended the lease," he told me. "You've got 7 days to move out." That was how I found out they hadn't just left for a trip, they were gone. For the first 3 nights, I slept on a friend's couch, pretending I just needed a place to crash. After that, I ran out of options. So I rented a small storage unit with what was left of my savings. It was cheap, paid in cash, no questions asked. I kept a sleeping bag in the back and made sure to only go in late at night when the staff was gone. I'd slip out each morning like I was just dropping off boxes. I showered at the YMCA on the other side of town. Ate peanut butter straight from the jar with a plastic spoon. Used the public library's computers to apply for jobs and tried not to cry in the restroom between applications. I told no one what was really happening. Eventually, I got hired at a 24-hour diner on the edge of the city. Night shift, minimal questions, paid in cash until I could sort out my documents. The manager, Linda, came off as rude at first, short, sharp, didn't smile much. But the first time I nearly passed out in the kitchen, she shoved a plate of food into my hands and ordered me to sit. "You're no good to me if you collapse," she grumbled. But she covered my tables herself and let me nap in the break room for half an hour. I survived that year through sheer stubbornness. I bought a prepaid phone, kept every receipt in a shoebox, watched free YouTube videos on budgeting, time management, and how to set goals when you're drowning. It was barely a life, but it was mine. The turning point came as quietly as everything else. One of our regulars at the diner was this quiet guy named Russell. Always ordered the same thing. Always left exact change plus a tip. One night, he asked what I did during the day, and I joked, "Mostly try not to die." He laughed, then asked if I'd be interested in a short-term job cleaning out old files at the office where he worked. Shredding, organizing, boxing up documents. Boring, but better money than tips. I said yes on the spot. That temp job turned into a second one at a different department. Then a part-time role helping them digitize files and track expenses. I was good at seeing where things were messy and fixing them. I showed up early, left late, asked questions, figured things out on the fly. By 21, I was freelancing full-time, doing operations and systems cleanup for small businesses. By 24, I registered my own consulting business. At first it was just me, a folding table from a discount store, and a borrowed laptop in the corner of a co-working space. By 26, I had a small office and a handful of contractors working under me. By 28, I had a roster of clients whose logos I'd once only seen in other people's LinkedIn posts. The first time my bank app showed 7 figures, I sat on my couch and cried for an hour. Not because of the money itself, But because that 16-year-old kid sleeping in a storage unit with a jar of peanut butter had actually made it out. Through all of this, my family never reached out. Not a call. Not a text. Not even a random, "How are you?" email. Once, I saw my brother pop up in the People You May Know section on social media. He was living in another state, the state they'd moved to after leaving me married, holding a toddler in his profile picture. I stared at his page for a long time, wondering, did he tell his wife about me? Did he say I ran away? Or did he just erase me? I wish I could say I hated them. Hate would have been easier. Cleaner. But it wasn't hate. It was heartbreak. This hollow ache that sat in my chest and whispered, if you'd been better, they would have stayed. These days, I go to therapy mostly so that voice doesn't run my life anymore. My therapist, Dr. Harper, doesn't flinch when I tell her the ugliest parts. She helps me untangle the guilt from the facts. I made a list once, at her suggestion, of people who'd helped me when they didn't have to. Linda at the diner. The librarian who pretended not to notice I was there from opening to close. The coworker who quietly slipped me her old laptop when mine died. Tessa, the friend who gave me a couch when I had nowhere else to go. These are the people who taught me what support actually looks like. Everything shifted again when I agreed to do a podcast interview about family estrangement and starting over alone. I didn't think much of it. I told my story, hung up, and went back to work. 4 days later, the episode had over 1 million plays. My inbox exploded. Messages from strangers thanking me for saying what they'd always been afraid to say out loud. Stories way too similar to mine. And then one email subject line froze me in place. "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. Inside, there was no apology. No ownership. Just a paragraph about how she'd heard my side of things and how maybe we could talk things through as a family. About an hour later, another email came in. This one from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I bookmarked both and closed my laptop. For the next 10 days, I lived like a normal person on autopilot. I went to the gym, took client calls, had dinner with friends. But every night, I'd reopen those emails, reread them, and sit there with that old familiar confusion sitting heavy in my chest. My mom's message felt distant, almost like something you'd send to a former coworker you ran into online. My brother's felt more real. Shorter, clumsier, but more human. After a while, I decided to respond to him first. "It's been 12 years, I wrote. "What changed?" He replied an hour later. He said he'd found the podcast through a friend. That hearing my version of events made him realize how bad things had really been for me. That he'd been only 15 when they left. That he didn't have a say in the decision. That he'd looked me up online more than once over the years, but never had the courage to reach out. He ended it by saying he was proud of me. I didn't completely believe him. If he'd really been that worried, why wait until I was successful enough to be interviewed publicly? So I asked him that. His second email was longer. He admitted things were hard for them. My parents' business had failed. They were behind on rent. His wife, Kara, was pregnant with their second child, and they were drowning in medical bills. And there it was. The piece that finally made the puzzle click. I went silent again. A week later, my mom emailed a second time. This time with attachments, old photos of me as a baby at the beach, in front of a snowman with Noah. At the bottom, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed everything to Dr. Harper. She didn't tell me what to do, just reminded me that I had options. I could say yes. I could say no. I could say nothing at all. Closure doesn't always mean reconnection, she said. Sometimes closure is just a firm, final boundary. Still, part of me wanted answers. Part of me wanted them to hurt the way I'd hurt. And a small, stubborn part of me still wanted them to love me. In the end, I decided to see Noah first. No parents. Neutral territory. We picked a coffee shop in Denver, somewhere halfway between us. I landed that morning and spent 3 hours in my hotel room trying not to hyperventilate. At 2 p.m., I walked into the cafe and saw him sitting at a table by the window. He looked older, bulkier. His hairline had started creeping back. But he had the same nervous habit of picking at the label on his cup. I didn't hug him. Didn't know if I wanted to. We sat. The first 20 minutes were small talk we didn't really care about: his job, my flight, the weather. Then he started talking about that day. "I'm sorry," he said, voice shaking. "I swear I didn't know they were leaving you behind until it was already happening. They told me you'd decided to stay, that you had a plan, that they'd talk to you." I asked him the question that had lived in the back of my skull for 12 years. Why me, Noah? Why was I the one who didn't get a forwarding address? He stared at his hands. "They always said you were strong," he replied. "That you'd figure it out, that you didn't need them like I did. They said you were better off on your own than with us falling apart." I told him what figuring it out actually looked like. The storage unit, the YMCA showers, the peanut butter dinners, the night shifts at 16. He cried. "I didn't know," he kept saying. "I should have tried harder. I should have checked. I'm sorry." By the time we said goodbye, I still didn't know whether I could forgive him. But I knew this: he'd been lied to too. Just in a different way. That same night, my mom got my number and called. Her voice shook. She went straight into how proud she was of me, how special I'd always been, how she knew I'd make something of myself. I let her ramble until she ran out of words. Then I asked, "Why did you leave me?" Her version was different from Noah's. "We were broke," she said. "We couldn't afford to feed all of us. You were smart, resourceful. We thought you'd go to social services and get placed with a good family. We really believed we were doing you a favor." I hung up mid-sentence and blocked her. The next morning, my dad emailed. His first words to me in over a decade. He listed their hardships: failed business, health issues, overdue rent. At the very end, he finally got to his point. "We could really use some help now that you're doing well." Not a single apology. Not a single, "How have you been?" Just a bill in emotional form. That was the moment I stopped wondering if I was overreacting. With Dr. Harper's help, I drafted a message to Noah. I told him I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no helping out financially in any way, and no contact with our parents unless they acknowledged what they'd done and took real responsibility for it. He responded almost immediately. "I'm really disappointed, Ava. Mom and Dad need help. Family helps each other. You're being selfish." It was like being 16 again, accused and guilty without knowing why. This time, instead of arguing, I stepped away. I booked a flight to Santorini, messaged Dr. Harper, and let myself leave the country with my phone on Do Not Disturb. 3 days into the trip, Noah left a voicemail apologizing. Said he'd thought about what I said. Said he started therapy. Said he understood my boundaries and still wanted a relationship. I decided to give him another shot with my eyes open. Things escalated after I got back. My parents showed up in my city. First, they tried the "we drove so far to see you" angle. Then they tried guilt. Then they tried crying in my hallway so the neighbors would see them as victims. When that didn't work, the threats started. Some were emotional. Some were legal sounding. Some were about telling their side to anyone who'd listen. They crossed a line when they started involving Noah and Kara's home. First it was pressure and guilt. Then it was escalating harassment. Then, one night, it became a break-in that left their living room trashed and their child's baby photos missing, along with important documents and a note. Family matters should stay in the family. We involved my lawyer, Daniel, and the police. We filed for emergency restraining orders. We detailed the history, the abandonment, the lies, the threats, the break-in. The photo they later sent of my niece, Mia, playing in a backyard with the caption, "This isn't over." The judge granted us 3-year restraining orders for all of us: me, Noah, Kara, and Mia. My parents stood in court and, when directly asked, basically admitted they'd left me alone at 16. Tried to spin it. Failed. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure. Not yet. But the beginning of it. My parents didn't stop immediately, but the pattern changed. They circled my building in my dad's old car without stepping onto the property. They sent emails that danced just inside the line of what could get them arrested. I got tired of waiting for them to make the next move. So I made mine. I emailed them and set up a meeting at a cafe. One last conversation. Just us. I didn't go there to reconcile. I went there to end it on my terms. I told them plainly. They had lost the right to be in my life. They had lost access to Noah's. They would not know their grandchildren. If they pushed it, I would protect us with every tool at my disposal, legal, social, financial. I'd stop keeping their secrets. For the first time in my life, I watched my dad run out of words. My mom cried and asked if I hated them. I told her the truth. I don't hate you. I feel nothing for you. That's what happens when you leave your kid behind and don't look back. You become strangers. Then I walked out. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't the scared 16-year-old they left behind. I was the adult who got to decide who did and didn't get access to me. Months have passed since that day. My parents went back to their state. The restraining orders are still in place. Eventually, through Daniel, they sent letters. Short ones. Less dramatic. More honest than anything I've ever gotten from them. They acknowledged what they'd done, said they were in counseling, said they'd respect the boundaries and understood if I never wanted contact again. I don't know yet what I'll do with that information. What I do know is this. Noah and Kara live about 20 minutes from me now. Mia calls me Auntie Ava and drags me around the toy aisle like I'm made of unlimited money and patience. We have Sunday dinners more often than not. Sometimes it's takeout. Sometimes it's burnt lasagna because we all forgot the timer. My apartment, once surgical clean and always quiet, is full of noise on weekends. Tiny shoes kicked off by the door, toys under the coffee table, laughter from the kitchen. We're still healing. I still flinch when an unknown number calls. I still wake up some nights convinced I'm back in that empty house with nothing but a note telling me I'll figure it out. But that note doesn't define me anymore. I figured it out in a way they never expected. I built a life without them. I built safety from the ground up. I built family out of people who show up, not people who disappear. People ask if I'll ever forgive my parents. If I'll ever invite them back in. If I'll ever let them meet Mia. I don't have those answers yet. Maybe one day. Maybe never. What I know for sure is this. I'm not the girl they abandoned at 16 anymore. I'm the woman who survived, built something good, and chose her own family. They were right about one thing. I did figure it out. Just not in a way that includes them.
Thank you everyone for taking your time to listen to my stories that are posted in this channel. Your engagement and entertainment are a huge part of my motivation, and I hope you all will continue on supporting me in the future. Once again, thank you for watching my videos. For more content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel.